you all. My name is Conrod. We are moments away from hosting the 2024 mayor's election debate. We are moments from starting. We have some of the candidates who are running for mayor will take place. They'll be sitting right here, the chairs behind me, and I will be the host. We're going to ask crucial questions that are concerns to you out in the community, such as affordable housing, public transit, the affordable living here in the Halifax region, and having Halifax Regional Council combat issues that matter to you at home. But anyways, we're moments away from the 2024 mayor's election debate. Here we are at the 2024 mayor's debate. I'm Adam Conrod with two of the candidates running for mayor. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, and I'm going to ask why you're running for mayor and what the main topics that were brought to your attention when you were campaigning, and what's the one thing that you would do if one of you was elected as mayor. So we'll start with Riley.
Thank you very much. Thank you for putting this on today, because so often we've been left out of the conversation, and it's really undemocratic of a lot of organizations and media outlets to do this. So I appreciate your time in putting this together. My name is Riley Murphy. I ran a community nonprofit radio station for the last nearly 5 years. And over that time, I've listened to the concerns of our seniors, because we were geared towards seniors. So a lot of their concerns have to do with being pushed away and not feeling like they're part of the society anymore, because everything is going online. Everything that is an app, or there is some sort of technology involved, and our seniors don't have that capacity anymore. So to get to your question, what I would like to do in my first term is to make government more accessible to our seniors and people without access to technology. That could be with physical forms or liaisons at community centers, post offices, or any sort of community building in your neighborhood. Public libraries are great, like we are at today. They do some help, but they're not in every community. So I'm running to make real change and break the cycle of these tired politicians that put us here, because too often decisions are being dictated upon us, and it is our input that is supposed to drive decision making. I'm Riley Murphy, and I'm here to give you a voice, and be your voice on council. Thank you.
Well, everyone, I'd like to thank everyone for putting this together here today, and I'd like to say once again, my concern is the same as Mr. Murphy's here regarding the mainstream media has ignored most of the candidates running, only picked their top 3 or 5 candidates, and I think it's injustice and undemocratic. Now, the reason why I'm running, I've been running in politics since 1993. I've served as a returning officer for every election. Different levels. I've ran for city council 23 times. I ran for mayor 3 times now. And I have a long list of working for nonpartisan. I work for all 3 main mainstream parties, as well as independent parties. And the reason why I'm running is because I care about the community. I care about our city. The direction it's going seems to be wrong. We started with 3 small communities, 3 small cities and towns, and we've amalgamated to a super city. It's just not working. It's not functional. And people feel like they're being left behind. And a lot of seniors, people, minorities, just feel that they're not getting their voice. And I wanted to be that voice for people. I wanted to give them a chance to hear what needs to be heard, the words that they want to hear, and they want their issues known, and to make things better for our community. So for me, it's an opportunity to be a voice for the community. I'm not in it for the money or the fame or to know who I am. I'm there to make a difference in our community and bring it back to the people. And basically, we look at so many issues we're facing right now. We got homeless problems and housing issues. We got transit that's not, our infrastructure is just not working. We need to try to fix a broken system. Our system wasn't always like this. At one time, you go back, we had things were working here. For some reason, you say it's population, it's all this, there's all kinds of other excuses. But I'm not here to get excuses, I'm here to find solutions. And that's mainly why I'm running right now, is to try to get solutions to our people, get voices to the ones that are not heard. And we have so many issues that we could go on. I'm not going to make any promises, because promises is all you hear is promises and promises, but no one wants to fulfill them. I'm here to find solutions and work with you. I'm a voice of the community. I'm a cab driver. I hear every day in my cab what's going on. I hear all the issues, what the problems are, what the solutions are. And I think it's time for a different perspective. We have these politicians that come in there and they don't seem to be solving the problems. And I'm just here as a problem solver to be your voice. So that's basically why I'm running, because I care. It's what I did my whole life. Since I was a little kid, you know, I was 8 years old, I started campaigning with the mayoral candidate. And it's just a life dedication. That's what I'm looking for you. And if you want a different perspective than a career politician, it's time to come to a regular guy like me. So that's basically why I'm running.
All right, now, one of the issues that I noticed with Halifax Regional Council and open community, that majority of the topics, concerns from the community are provincial topics. And one of the things that I had noticed over the years was the Halifax region had encountered disasters. Hurricane Juan, serious forest fires. When you looked at the hurricanes perspective, one of the things that I noticed was the lack of appropriate infrastructure. No evacuation shelters for people to go. Because when I was talking to the mayor's office and to my council members, one thing what they would say is, we have the Scotiabank Center, we have the Halifax Forum, we have the Satin Sports Center, the former sportsplex, whatever you want to call it. The concern is there's no appropriate infrastructure for people to go for emergency evacuation shelters, because the reality is if you have people live in, let's say, Sheet Harbor, Kings Brook, Ecosystem, you're not going to have enough room to fit everybody in the Halifax region in those facilities. Some people has a place to go, like that basement and stuff, to house themselves for the time being, but there's no actual infrastructure, because one thing that people said you can turn to is school. A school can take so much. And when I looked at the weather, how things are changing, it's getting worse. It's basically a matter of time before a Category 5 hits our region and worst case scenario will take place. But when I looked at the infrastructure, there's no emergency evacuation shelters. With the forest fires perspective, I mean, I don't know you, but I noticed that Nova Scotia relies on New Brunswick for a water bomber. I mean, why can't the Nova Scotia government purchase their own infrastructure to make things work? Why can't Nova Scotia purchase a water bomber? Because the concern is, it's some of this is provincial, and the other side is municipal. But the thing what I noticed was that the people that are responsible for this are not taking this serious until something really big happens and it lands on their doorstep, and they're basically left with what to do at last minute changes. Because like with the forest fire that happened at Waiwai in West Porter's Lake, they couldn't put into a safe shelter because there was a COVID, so there's nowhere to go. And then there's the police telling people you have to evacuate. Evacuate where? Where are you going? You can't go to a campground because they're likely full because it's summer and it's May. But the reality is the infrastructure, the planning is not there. Because I understand that some of this is a provincial jurisdiction, which it is. But it seems like no matter what level or who's in charge, there's no planning for this. There's no nothing. It's just, well, we'll just wait till something disastrous happens, or even from the community for that fact, people won't take it serious till something happens and they don't know what they're doing, or they can't pull things together at the last second. Because I was part of that evacuation. I know what it was like. My main concern was the lack of planning with the infrastructure. There's nothing in place. The people in charge, the politicians, they didn't take it seriously until something happened. So my question to you guys is, what do you think that needs to be done to ensure people that the infrastructure for emergency situations are in place when they need them?
Yeah, great question. We should stop reacting and start being proactive to these these natural disasters. So obviously, upgrades to our infrastructure, working with the province to make sure that we have the necessary equipment, could be generators or even emergency beds in some of these community centers and schools like you mentioned. But one thing that the municipality needs to do right now, and what I would do in my first 100 days being your mayor, is reviewing and revising our emergency evacuation plan. Because right now, these are old numbers, by the way. It would take 24 hours to evacuate every single person in HRM, assuming no accidents or tie-ups or anything else that would slow you down. Now, that number comes, I believe, from 4 to 5 years ago before our population boom. The time now would be more like 48 hours. So as we've seen with the wildfires and with the flooding that we had in Bedford, I think it was last year, 48 hours is much too long and things need to be done quicker. So we need to update our emergency evacuation plan, get more routes in and out of key areas so that we can get people out in the case of a natural disaster. So that is what one of my main priorities would be in my first 100 days. Review and revise our emergency evacuation plan and then work with the province on how we can upgrade our current infrastructure so that if there is a Category 5 hurricane, that people know they can go to these shelters, these community centers, and they have a warm place to stay with electricity and clean water to drink. So, like you said, it can be a provincial issue, but there are things the municipality can do to work around that. Don't let anybody tell you, I can't deal with that because that's a provincial issue. That's laziness, and we can find ways to work around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we look back in history, and the EMO was set up for World War II to protect us from bombs from the Germans attacking during World War II. And at that time, they were coordinated an effort to have bomb shelters for people. And it was all the forces we had: the police, the fire, and the safety in the woods, and all the other organizations for safety were formed to protect us from nuclear attack at the time. And unfortunately, somehow this communication system, the EMO, has fallen apart. We don't know why we have good coordination. Our grandparents' time, my uncle Kevin was one of the presidents of the EMO at the time, back in the 1950s. And everything seemed to work, connected to fire departments, everything, health services seemed to work. But now somehow there's some kind of disconnect. They don't know how to communicate to one another. We found out the hearings they had in Timberlake that the messages weren't getting through. People weren't being warned on their phones. We have all this technology, but it seems that no one's working together. And what I'm going to do is actually put a strong EMO, work with the province and all levels of government, and have them strong and have communication. Every single person has our phone. We have the Halifax alert, or the phone alert system, and make sure that it works better for that. Even the average person will know a lot quicker and who to contact. We need to have a strong plan. My plan is to work with all the emergency measure people and have the same effort as we had during World War II to protect us from nuclear attacks. We need the same thing to protect us from environmental. And just having a shelter, like say, like the Scotia Bank Center or something like that, does not work. We've seen what happened in the recent Hurricane Milton. The entire dome, top of the sports zone they had there was made of fiberglass. It was supposed to handle a Category 5 hurricane. Didn't even hit a Category 3, and it had no roof. So now their entire shelter and their entire center for operations is gone. So we have to have some contingency and also have something designed that's not going to be destroyed by a hurricane or by a natural disaster. And I think that's my first, like I say, my first 100 days as mayor. I'm going to definitely look into it strongly. First, I got to see what the books are. It's the main thing. I always say, I want to see the books, where our money's going, and from there divide it up into each department. And I will make definitely the EMO is definitely a priority for our city. Thank you.
All right. One of the issues that I've noticed that have been an issue for the past 30 years is affordable housing. And I've been seeing people who've been working full-time jobs and still can't afford a place to live. There's people that have been working their whole lives, can't afford rent. Some people have got to the point it's either rent or groceries. One time it was rent or power. The reality is, like, people here in the Halifax region just can't make ends meet. When we see people living on the streets, in my opinion, that should never happen. For somebody or a group of people be living on the street. There's a reason for everything. And we all know that affordable housing is in the jurisdictions of the province, the federal government. But when I looked at the way how the Halifax region is going, there's all kinds of houses for the wealthy and the rich and all this stuff. But when it comes to the average person who's working full-time jobs, having a family with kids, can't afford to live. People are living on income assistance. The rules and regulations in place are creating barriers that will prevent them from achieving what they're trying to achieve. The systems out there are supposed to help people is actually holding them down. I mean, I went to school with people, and when I graduated from high school, this is back in 1999, I come up and I see in the community, they're either outside panhandling, they're outside living in a tent, or they're curled up behind the side of a building someplace, trying to make shelter so they can sleep. And I mean, what we're seeing here is something what we should never be seeing. Affordable housing should never fall in crisis, because 20 years ago, like what I noticed, if you were to go up to a politician and address affordable housing, they would say that's life. For somebody to hear that from a politician, that's unacceptable. Because the reality of life can be harsh. Life's not fair. And when you see people struggling to put food on the table, feed themselves, let alone feed their families, you got jobs that are out in our Halifax region. Some jobs are not worthwhile going to work for. When I looked at the employment here in the Halifax region, you got temp agencies that will work here for half a season. You get laid off without no notice. You got seasonal work, construction work. You're good for a year, but during that off season, now you feel the financial pinch. And the main question, what I'm asking is, even though this is a provincial topic, what's your best way of how to combat and addressing affordable housing to the people who actually need it?
Yeah, another great question. So let me be clear by saying the cost of living is so high due to our current council's bad decisions and the former MP's bad decisions that is also running for mayoralty. Now, you mentioned, yes, this is a provincial issue. Again, there's so much that the municipality can do to work around it. And again, don't let these so-called front runners tell you this is what they're going to do. They're going to expedite zoning. They're going to make zoning digital. It's already being done. These things are already in the works. There's beta testing for streamlining permit processes. There's already digital permitting. So don't let them tell you this is what they're going to do. It's currently being done. If any of us come into power, it's still going to happen. So the things that the municipality can do to work around the provincial jurisdiction to make housing more affordable, there's a few things. We can build more houses. Of course, we already know that, and we can have strict penalties for developers who go against their permits currently. So if they say X amount are going to be affordable, and then last minute they backtrack on that, there should be strict penalties so they can't get out of it. Because right now, to my knowledge, there is certain companies, certain developers taking taxpayer funds to allocate X amount of affordable housing, and then they'll pull out of the deal very last minute because the fine is cheaper than continuing on with the affordable units. So we need stricter penalties and to actually enforce them as well. Now, one unique idea I have is to incentivize landlords to charge affordable rent. So right now, affordable rent is 20% below the market value, and we can beat up on landlords all we want, but they provide a service at the end of the day, a service that we all can use. So if we incentivize affordable rent through property tax breaks, they would be more likely to opt into this system and charge affordable rent so that everybody has an equal playing field, essentially. That's my unique idea in combating this. Of course, we need to work with the province for our funds because there are there's a lot of money that we were promised that we didn't get. Again, from my understanding, it's because council and the province isn't getting along. The province purchased the Doubletree Hotel in downtown Dartmouth, and they're using less than 1 floor of it because they didn't allocate enough resources or staff members to help out in this situation. Now, the Doubletree Hotel should be able to house every single unhoused person in HRM, but because of the lack of resources, the strict conditions that they're putting on this, less than 1 floor is being used right now. So we need to work with the province to allow more people to use that, because we can't allow any of our brothers and sisters to live on the streets as we see it currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is an issue that's very close to me. I live in a lower income neighborhood, and I see a lot of the effects of what's going on here with the housing. And one of my competitors, Wayne Mason, tells everyone, now, if we build more houses for the rich and the elite, the people at the top, the people at the bottom will have more housing available. Well, that's not true. What we're seeing right now is that as they build more houses for the wealthy and high income, there's still more houses built for the wealthy and higher income, but there's nothing being built down below. So it's a lie telling everyone, oh, if we build more luxury condos, we'll have more of the other facilities built for elderly people with low income. And it's not happening. Andy Fillmore, another one, he says that the federal government, he's personally championed making fast-tracking permits and getting things built. But he isn't fast-tracking those permits. Those is the process that's been going on for a while. They decided that at least 3 to 4 years ago, they decided they were going to start fast-tracking permits. So that had nothing to do with Andy Fillmore, who was taking credit for it. And that's a process that I will put more pressure on these people in these departments to get this process. Why should it take so long to fast-track permits? I will put pressure on all of the government and make sure that we get these permits, get these buildings built. But we also make sure that it's mandated that there's a certain number of units could be smaller than the smaller units, like we have Murphy bids, and not the Murphy, but Murphy bids you have in New York, which are bids that fall to the wall you're familiar with. Make smaller units that are more affordable instead of having one unit that's say $4,100 a month, right? 2 units that are $2,000 a month or less. Start looking at how houses are built, and also. I looked at what they're called balloon houses. They're inflatable housing, and they're like tents that they can inflate. They put up really quickly. They cost a quarter or even eighth the price that we're getting for these mobile house, these modular housing that the province is bringing in. Plus, we have artisans and people here at our community college that can build small units much cheaper and quicker than having to ship from the States. And even now, we got some of them that are shipped here. They're still mothballed. Why are those units being used by the public that need them? And I think we got to change our whole structure. We also look at our downtowns. You go to downtown Bedford, downtown Sheet Harbor, anywhere you see more and more downtowns boarded up. You see empty malls. So what happened to small business? At one time we had the guy would have a shoe shop somewhere. So the guy had a tiny little hole in the wall, and he'd be doing that. We had all kinds of little computer stores, co-ops, you name it. We had people refilling ink. We had all kinds of different things. We've lost our character. We lost the culture of small business. And I think we have to. If we can get small business back, make it easier. You get people on the streets, you teach them, you give them a pencil to write on it, but you teach them how to sell pencils. You show them how to market themselves. You need to get people who are small business entrepreneurs to go out in the streets and get these people out into their own small business, like I say, with a 10-cent pencil for 25 cents. That's something big profit. And we do simple things like that. But there's so many barriers that are being put up, and so many lies are being told that people are taking credit for things that they're not doing. And we get people in department heads that aren't doing their job. They're promising, no, we're going to move forward on this, but then they lollygag. They find a way to make the project cost more. How long is this Cogswell project going on? All that money, how many houses have been built for the cost of it? The Cogswell interchange, it's like $40, $50 million probably by now or more. And how many houses could you build for that? A lot more. It would be more efficient. Just leave it the way it is or improve it slightly. But big project, then they want to do other things that these interchanges don't really help bring housing. They might help redirect traffic a bit. But so far, it doesn't seem to be working. And once again, Mr. Fillmore takes credit, he was a city planner. That's all you hear him. All the time, will be a city planner. Well, his planning hasn't obviously worked. And under my plan, I will be putting a little bit of fire under the butts of the people in the departments to make sure that they focus on getting our housing and also getting our educators out there to make sure that people know how to start their own business, make it part of the curriculum in schools, how to become a business person. And that's my quick little solution there. It's not going to be an easy one, but we have to start looking at outside the box and try to make our city a new place and make a new Halifax where there is very little poverty and people have opportunity jobs and a roof over their head that's a solid roof, not a tent is not a solid roof. It's only a temporary Band-Aid if you're bleeding, so that's my opinion.
One of the issues that I had noticed was the public transit bus service. It's mostly operated by Halifax Transit. I haven't seen no private sectors yet. In 2012, when Porter's Lake was promised a parking ride to be constructed in the community of Porter's Lake, which is supposed to be a rapid service from Porter's Lake directly to downtown Halifax. Also in 2012, the community of Minesville was promised access to a park and ride location in their community, and so was the community of Muscatauga Harbor. Here we are in 2024, Muscatauga Harbor still doesn't have their park and ride constructed. Minesville's still waiting that they're going to get it, but it still hasn't happened. Porter's Lake is the only community that got their park and ride constructed. And when I looked at their ridership numbers, 6, 7 people at most, when the requirement passengers per trip is 14. Now, when I looked at the other bus services throughout the Halifax region, it seems like there's still rural communities of the Halifax region, like Hubbard's, Middle Sackville, still ain't got no public transit, providing that they requested for it. But it seems to me that all the bus service that people could use is jammed in one area, downtown Dartmouth, downtown Halifax. The people of Muscatauga Harbor stated that they would like to have access to public transit. Now, they have access to a private shuttle service. There's 2 shuttle services in the community of Porter's Lake. But their concern with that is the cost efficiency is unrealistic for their affordabilities to access their service. And they had stated they'd like to see possibly a Halifax Transit bus service their community of Muscatauga Harbor. And like I said, it's all based on ridership and commitment from the community. And majority of these people who had voiced that they would like to have public transit are seniors, low-income people. But it seems like to me that the rural communities are not properly being combated on how can Halifax Transit, how can the Halifax Regional Council service their community with affordable public transit within their community, because seniors going to go to a medical appointment. Some people can't drive, they don't have a license because of health reasons, mental health reasons, whatever, may not have access to their arms or legs, whatever the case may be. Some people may need public transit to go to or from work. That was another issue that came up. Well, Porter's Lake got a bus service, but the first bus leaving is like 6 o'clock in the morning. And by the time you get to work, it's either about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. By the time you get to the job site, you're late. The main concern was the Eastern Shore had stated that they would like to have a public transit that best serves their community. And like I said, with the Metro X, the rapid service, the communities of Minesville, Muscatauga Harbor, Porter's Lake was promised a park and ride, and only Porter's Lake had received that. So basically my question is, what's your plan on how to ensure communities who've been calling for a public transit actually gets an opportunity to have access to a public transit? And what's your plan on how to service rural communities of actually having a public transit if they need one, if you need to access the service?
And another great question. When we were in Moses River a few weeks back, we talked to a couple who said if they need to do an eye appointment in downtown Halifax on Spring Garden Road, it cost them over $400 for the Musco. Unacceptable, and there should be other options for these people in rural areas to make it to work, to make it to school, to make it to appointments without having to spend their whole paycheck. So one of the things I would advocate for is seamless regional travel. So it could work in tandem with Maritime Bus. It could go from the Eastern Shore into the nearest terminal, which I believe would be Portland Estates, and then from there, wherever they need to go. But also, we should be reaching out to other municipalities so that we can all work together. So I would work with other municipalities and the province to get funds for a seamless regional transit so that all communities can feel connected. Now, right now, the problem with Metro Transit, Halifax Transit, is a lack of drivers because they're losing drivers currently, whether it's due to stress or abuse, just feeling unsafe. Drivers are leaving the workforce. So if we can invest in security measures, surveillance, extra lighting, and more on-call, I guess maybe designated officers to deal with problems, we would see more drivers come back to the workforce. That way we can get more buses on the road and more efficient routes. The term often thrown around is bus rapid transit, BRT, which is going to cost something like $800 million and take 10 years to build because we don't have the infrastructure for it. But what we do have is great highways, and we can use our highways currently to jump from terminal to terminal, ferry terminal, to the Portland Estates, to Penhorn, to the bridge, to Clayton Park, and get people where they need to go on time and make them feel safe in the process. If we can do that, we can get more buses on the road, and we can get more buses into rural areas and have more efficient routes so that they don't need maybe all-day service, but at peak time. So as you mentioned, 6 in the morning, from there directly to the nearest terminal and back. And we can do this every half hour if we need to. So we really need to work with the other municipalities on this, but at the core, investing in security, safety measures for our driver will bring more drivers into the workforce. And not only that, if people feel safe to take the bus, then they're going to take it more, and that's when more cars get off the road. If they know they're going to make it to work or school on time without any interruptions, and they know they're going to be safe in the process, that's when people will start trusting Halifax Transit again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a good question that needs to be answered. Myself, I worked we had a bus strike a few years ago. I think about 20 years ago we had a bus strike, and I actually worked with the negotiation team that ended the bus strike. And one of the conditions that the union had is that there was no privatization allowed at all in Metro Transit. It was the deal they said with the union, and it was agreed upon. At that time, we had private transit. One bus would run from Grand Desert through the Eastern Shore, and also would do the same company would do Upper Sackville and Mount Uniacke. And as soon as they made the agreement with the union, that bus service was canceled, so people lost their service. And I wasn't really for it. I think we should have a partnership of private and Metro Transit workers, but unfortunately, or fortunately, how you're looking at it, for the union is good, for the people it's not the best, but it's the best we deal with from the Amalgamated Transit Union, and so we have to stand by our agreement to have the Metro Transit is not going to be contracted out to private businesses. But I see a lot of the problem, well, we're losing drivers. I mean, there's I think 1/3 fleet at one point was on stress leave, and on a lot of our long-term disability, and we had to look and investigate why some of these people are on long-term disability, and if it's a time that maybe they should have their office, whether they be working inside the office somewhere, some other position, but trying to get either back to the bus or into another position within the HRM. That's one issue we have to deal with. And the thing is, transit itself is can't find drivers sometimes. They're losing drivers, but they also can't find drivers. It's hard to find someone with an air brakes course ride a bus. So why don't we start looking for rural areas that have smaller buses, that we have minivans or 12, 14 passenger vans that run on regular gas or regular diesel or now they're hybrid, but do not require air brakes. So therefore we have a whole pool now of potential drivers to drive those buses in rural areas. Sometimes we have somewhere like was mentioned before, some of these routes that have a whole full elongated bus that can handle maybe 80 passengers and has 6 people on it. Well, certain routes like that maybe could be examined, and we could put our van service on there, have the regional van. And I'm not talking about just these rough vans that are like someone's backyard with a couple chairs, and really comfortable vans. And that if they're on long haul from Sheet Harbor, Halifax, they're going to be comfortable. They're going to park their car because this car is air conditioned. They could have reclining seats, something that's comfortable. They're going to say, well, why would I drive when I can take a nice bus into town? And we have to re-examine what it is. We have to start looking at how our system's done. We got to look at scheduling for this. So sometimes you have 16 buses all come to Scotia Square at once. Why don't we look at making alternate terminals? Other areas, we have our old library downtown that's not being used really. We could turn that into a bus terminal. And we got to start looking at multifaceted terminals, things that have a place where you can charge your e-bike, a place where you can rent an e-scooter at the same time. Would have also health information there, so that they could even possibly have a taxi stand there for 1 or 2 cars, and also have areas that you could get information, even a little bookstore or something, a little newsstand. But we got to re-examine the entire system. We also, like I said, once again, my competitor said that we want to see connections to other rural areas. We have Hans Transit, we have Cobblepit Transit, which does the Truro area, and we could have an entire link, make it like as Pam Levla said, have a regional transit for the entire Halifax capital region. And I support something like that, but I say we also have to decide where the needs are and have to start doing load counting and things like that. But once again, we cannot cut service because we were told by the union that we cannot ever cut the transit service. They're defining the loopholes around it, but realistically, we're not supposed to diminish the service or get rid of unionized drivers. We have to keep as many that are there have to have jobs. And that was our collective agreement. My future secret transit, we have to re-examine what it is and how we define transit and have multi-use transit stations and stuff like that. And that's my solution to do in different areas. We have to get the people from the area to participate. Like I said, once again, when we have buses in the area, no one's getting on them. Why? Because they take too long to get to work. And the other reason is they're not efficient, they're not going where they want to go. They don't go all the way into downtown Halifax. The buses from rural areas will stop on the outskirts of town. They'll have to take another bus from there into town, hopefully connect to that and get in time for work. So our system is broken, it's not working. But we have to also look at our taxi system here to also have park and ride, things like, rural taxi would do if there's an area, say at 9 o'clock at night, there's one person in say, Prospect that needs a cab. That means he needs a bus. Instead of sending a bus down there after hours, we can send a taxi and have it subsidized so that the $5 off the fare. We got to look at other solutions, and that's part of my solution. I have a plan that's available on my website in my PDF file that explains further details. But it's something I do take seriously, and it's something that actually, because I'm a cab driver, I know it firsthand on the front line to see what's going on with our transportation system. And infrastructure has to be upgraded as well to make sure that these systems work. So that's basically my take on this issue.
All right. Some of the things that was mentioned in the past was how the Eastern Shore rural communities were faring along with the rest of the Halifax region. Because in the community of Muscatauga Harbor, during the councilors' debate, deamalgamation was mentioned from the crowd. And with the word deamalgamation, only the province can make that happen. And if it was to happen, can these rural communities sustain their community functions on their own? And a lot of people had voiced concerns on how the tax structure was done in their communities. They feel that they're being overtaxed for services that they're receiving. And my question to you guys is, what's your plan on how to interact with the people of the Eastern Shore, the rural communities of the Halifax region, who live in these rural communities, who pay for services that they're not actually receiving? And what's your best sense of direction on where to go with this? Because there's people, like, what was it, 30 years ago, after the amalgamation went into effect? I mean, obviously the planning wasn't done appropriately before they did amalgamation, because there's people that are paying for services that they're not receiving. They're unhappy with it. It was done in a way that people didn't have a vote on it or a say on it. It was just done. And my question to you guys is, what's your sense of direction, your game plan on how to handle people living in rural communities who feel that they're being taxed on services that they're not even receiving?
So ever since amalgamation, there's been a divide between the inner core and the outer core of whose taxes are paying for what. The The outer core feels like their money is going directly to downtown Halifax. The inner core feels like their money is going towards the rural areas of HRM. Now, as your mayor, I'm going to put an end to this. I'm going to do one final study, and I'll chair these meetings to make sure that we know exactly where our tax dollars are going. Now, I find it very unfair for people in rural areas to pay the same property taxes as the inner core, because oftentimes they're not on city water or city sewage. They're using their own. They have a septic tank, they have a well. So we need to look at what type of reductions we can do for our rural families so that they're not paying for the same services but getting less. That's one thing we have to make sure of, that everybody feels like they're treated fairly and that nobody is being left out of the conversation. So again, first, we need the study to make sure that we know where our tax dollars are going and to prove once and for all one side is not funding the other. And then second, look to reduce the taxes to people who are paying for services that they're not actively using. So again, that could be city water or sewage, and oftentimes people in rural areas are, again, they're using their own wells and their own septic tanks. They should be paying more for less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a good question. I was around lived in the rural area during the amalgamation, pre-amalgamation actually. And our family was there. When they amalgamated our city, our taxes skyrocketed. We started getting billed for, once again, like our water, which we shouldn't have been billed. We had our own well. We were getting billed. We had septic field. We also get these new bills. We get bills for schools and sidewalks, bus service, all these things. We didn't have, our nearest bus was 4 kilometers away. And our property tax almost went up by 40%. It was a big jump for everybody in Upper Sackville at the time. And we were forced to move back to the city because we couldn't afford the taxes anymore. This was unreal. And we had no representation. Our councillors didn't know. A lot of them were former councillors that were in the former county councillor and were switched over to the city. And they were not even briefed on what the future was coming, how what's happening. And I think once again, the municipality cannot de-amalgamate itself without the province. And I think we need to look at having another splitting in our city. We need to have the Halifax City, which would be this core area, and have the outside area would be a separate municipality of the rural communities that we had before the Halifax County. And I think it's time that we re-examine that, brought it back to the people. When we have a vote on it. We voted on our amalgamation was forced into us by the provincial government. And I guess they were afraid that it would have failed, so they did not want to have that vote. Dartmouth lost its entire identity. It was a separate city, and it's totally, no one even wiped off maps. It becomes now Beatrice community of Halifax. And it should not be. Dartmouth had its own industrial parks. It had Woodside Industrial Park, it had Burnside. And Halifax wanted that. They wanted the industry there. And unfortunately, it's like almost they robbed it from the people there because they feel like it was taken from them. And people lost their power. And I think what I'd like to do is have a real city and maybe look at getting a plebiscite. And maybe it would have no power at the municipal level, but it would show the provincial government that it's something that they should look at. And that's the way I look at it. I've had people out there even today. I got an email this morning about someone that's complaining they're paying a high amount of water bill, and they have a well their whole life. Why are they paying such a high water bill? And why are they paying for things like projects that they don't want to put into street paving? And their area, they live on dirt roads, so how's the benefit of having more pavement laid and help them if they're not even scheduled for pavement? Let's look and see if these people, certainly there's remaining pavement. I've gone to in Beaverbank, that should have, the road is in terrible shape, it's falling apart, and it has not enough attention. So I think the rural area definitely has been ignored lately. The last few councils have put everything on the south end, the Peninsula Halifax, and it just seems like the rest of the HRM has been left out of the conversation. I'd like to have more public conversations, town hall meetings, find out what the people of the rural area want. I'm not putting one area against another. I don't think it's right that we should say downtown versus the outskirts, but we have to have a voice of all people throughout the HRM. And my goal as your mayor is to bring people together, to negotiate and look, actually give people more say, have more votes and stuff like that, more plebiscites and things on issues. And that's one way I'm going to combat our rural issue problem. I definitely will have a study done right away. I want to have people sit down at the table and have a study made and see exactly where our dollars are going in each community, how much each district is receiving as a general. I mean, some areas are probably paying more in and getting less out, and we want to balance that. And that's what my goal is as your mayor, to make sure that the entire HRM is balanced and everyone is treated fairly. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna ask if there's anybody from the audience that has a question you'd like to ask the candidates, or you go on to our next topic. As I do.
So you were, think that I like the idea of rural area paying less tax versus this suburb or the core downtown or high-end areas because they don't make the same money and they are underprivileged. So why would they pay? And they don't have even pavements. They don't have sewage. They don't have anything. They're on their own, and it's kind of unfair. So I like the idea of fighting for paying less, people who make less, and they don't have the services necessary, the garbage services necessary. Just maybe they go once a week or not at all. They have to deal with that. So everything that is for the people is sounds great. It should be that way. I mean, the people on the bottom, they have to have a vote, they have to have a voice. It's just the big shots, they have the voice, they do everything, and other people, they are kind of shy or they don't know how to ask, where to go and to whom they talk. So it's candidate who's really like know and feel the needs of the people. That's the one should get the vote. That's the one should fight for that because that's how democracy works. It has to the voices should be heard and act upon it.
Yeah. So there's a story about the community of Ecum Secum where a block of cheese is $40. So as you mentioned that people out there are paying more, they're getting less. That's a perfect example. So in this case, we should be strengthening our supply chains and be making sure that these people don't have to go without or be paying more, again, for less. The problem with amalgamation is, again, decisions being dictated upon us without our input. And as you mentioned, everybody has a voice and our voice needs to be heard. As your mayor, that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen to your input and decisions will be made based on that input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I definitely agree with that. A lot of people are being left out, and it's time that we included them. I plan on having online more surveys, polls, stuff like that. And they may not be binding under law, but they also give us a blueprint and a heartbeat of what's going on, so we can hear the pulse by having regular questionnaire stuff. Some people say, oh, well, you can skew the data, or you get a bunch of X, Y, Z to publish it. It doesn't matter at that point. It's just to get insight. We're not there to judge if someone's from a certain special interest group or they're all voting in one direction. We're just there to get the feedback. And I think that as your mayor, I'd like to have regular feedback online. We don't have to spend a whole fortune having people go to a poll every month and decide on things. We can have it as a regular dynamic process that people can vote on. And it should be also shared with the media, the News 97, CBC, all the main media should also once a month have a checkup, what we call it, like they had, it was done in Michigan, they did that before, they called every week the municipal checkup. And that's, I think we should do, have the municipal checkup, make sure that we're actually doing our job too. It will help us. Maybe we're governing the wrong ways, mayor, we're saying we're doing this, and also realize, by God, it's not in the public interest. These people are being left out in the field or don't want that. So what we should do is try to be more flexible. And as a mayor, that's what I want to do, is have regular insight in your polls, your publishing, and also publish letters, emails, etc. And keep it as a public forum. And that's what I want to do is like I say, once you get town hall, stuff like that, let's do it. Thank you.
All right. How about we talked about bike lanes, sidewalks, crucial things that people need in the city. But there's also like communities like Fall River, was a rural community, it's now quite populated. They have sidewalks and stuff like that, but bike lanes are getting to be harder to see, come across, I should say. And with the high density of traffic, not every community has street lights, traffic lights like they should have. And basically what I'm asking is, what's your plan on how to ensure people that the stuff that they need, if they're in a wheelchair or if they're a cyclist, they use one of those scooters now because the cost of operating vehicles is quite costly. My question to you guys is, what's your plan to ensure people who are in wheelchairs, etc., to use bicycles, scooters, what's your plan for them to ensure that what they need to go by on a day-to-day basis to or from work or wherever is going to be there for them so they can cross the street safely? Somebody in a motorized wheelchair is not going to get hit by a car. Traffic lights, if they hit the crosswalk sign, the crosswalk sign is going to flash long enough to get across. Because when I looked at the crosswalk signs, it seems like it's just long enough for the average person to cross the road, but if for somebody like with crutches or for somebody riding a motorized scooter, it may take a little longer to get across the road, if you know what I mean. And you don't want to see people hit by cars when it had happened. One senior got hit by a car while he was in a scooter. I mean, should we have special lanes for scooters, people in wheelchairs? Should that be an option that should be looked at? Because like 20 years, 30 years ago, if you're somebody in a wheelchair, if you need to get on a Metro Transit bus, it'd been like, have fun getting on the bus, because back then they had no ramp that could pick you up on a scooter or on a wheelchair to get you on the bus. It's basically, you're on the road from there, but it seems like the attitude with the city seems to have gotten more for the better. And the transit bus service got a little more better. Now people with wheelchairs can get on and off the bus a lot easier. But it seems like still not enough is done. We need to push more. How can we ensure people with scooters can go to and from their business without getting hit by traffic? People on bicycles. See, I'm a cyclist. One thing like I noticed, there's not enough bike lanes to ensure your security. And sometimes you're not supposed to use a sidewalk, but sometimes you got to do that. Me, I'll share the road, the sidewalk with pedestrians. I'll give the pedestrian the right of way. But unfortunately, not every cyclist will do that. But what it comes down to is we got to have the infrastructure, the security to ensure people that they can go by their business, whatever means it is, in a wheelchair or a scooter or a bicycle, so they're safe. And traffic can go by their business too. Don't be fair that they're going to hit somebody while they're going with their way.
So you're exactly right with the crosswalk time, and that's a concern I hear from seniors everywhere I go, that there's not enough time to cross the road. The crosswalk light changes way too early, so that's something we have to look at and fix. Our infrastructure is very inaccessible right now. Our sidewalks are very thin and doesn't allow for people in wheelchairs to get around easily. And then the problem with bike lanes is that's cutting into our infrastructure even more. So it's making a problem for motorists, it's making a problem for pedestrians that use the sidewalks currently. Now, in theory, on paper, bike lanes are great. In residential neighborhoods, perfect. But the downtown core, right now, they're taking precious commute time from our motorists who need to get to work and school, and they're taking away parking spaces. So you've added 15 minutes to get to your work just by the regular commute, then another 10 minutes to find parking, and then the same when you have to leave to go home. Now, if you have children in daycares or at schools that you have to pick up, that is precious time that you're losing. So we need to stop with this craziness around bike lanes. The council's last decision before they disbanded was $15 million for new bike lanes that will turn some streets into one-ways, will make it very difficult for motorists. We're not all privileged to use bike lanes to commute. Again, if you have kids that you need to take to daycare or to school, you can't use bike lanes. If you live in the outskirts like myself, or even in rural areas, you who definitely can't use bike lanes to commute. So there are very few of us that are privileged to use these lanes, and we're investing far too much money in it. If you see these former councillors, these are the people who voted for it, and that's exactly what they're going to keep voting for if they get this position. Same with the former MP that stepped down. If he gets in this position, you're going to see a lot more bike lanes. It's going to be harder for motorists to get around. And at the end of the day, these are the things that are contributing to congestion and frustration among practically everybody in the city. Because again, once our winter gets cold, you're going to see very few people in the bike lanes. Not only that, we're going to spend even more money to clean them out when it comes time for the snow. So you have to hire special equipment, or people who operate this special equipment to clean them. You can't pile the snow from the sidewalks into the bike lanes, and you can't vice versa. So we're going to spend a lot more money on something that people can't even use in the winter time. So again, bike lanes in practice or on paper are good. Residential neighborhoods, great, but our infrastructure doesn't allow for it, especially in the downtown core, and it's causing too much congestion and frustration. With the other issues of accessibility, we need more access to Accessibus. People need to be able to get to where they need to go, appointments, work, school, and Accessibus is a great tool to use, but we need to allocate more resources for it to be feasible to everyone. On top of that, like I mentioned, wider sidewalks for people in wheelchairs and ramps, things like that. But again, I'll go back to the bike lanes. Not only are they causing a problem for motorists, they're causing a problem for our small businesses because they're taking away precious parking right outside their building. And now those people will lose out on business because why would I spend 10, 15 minutes trying to find parking and another 15 minutes walking to your store when I can go to Walmart and park right in front and not have to worry about my commute time anymore? You may not like my answers, but I'm providing you with real solutions, and I'm listening to you because, again, when we're out in public and we're talking to people, so many of the other candidates say, well, housing's the biggest issue, transit's the biggest issue. Well, they're not listening to the same people I'm listening to, because when I'm out there talking to you, I'm hearing, what are you going to do about the bike lanes? Because they are ruining this city. I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel a little different approach to things. You mentioned before Fall River. We have communities Fall River, we have Indigo Hills, we have Tuscan Falls, and Halberton Hills, Halberton Heights. And these were communities not done, the infrastructure, those communities were not built by the city, they were built by private developers. And so the city municipality had no real design, in fact, those were all design and planned communities. And if you go to Halberton Hills or you go to Indigo Lake, you'll find they have very wide sidewalks. They're twice as wide as the ones you'd see in the city. And they are designed for bicycle, they have a bicycle, wheelchair access, and they're designed to be level and easy for people to get on and off of. So what we need to do as a city, we gotta go to these developers who develop these communities and ask them, how can we apply that to city control? Maybe the city should get out of the business of infrastructure and have it contracted out, have the contractors decide how development's done, and we mandate that our sidewalks are made twice the size that they normally are in rural areas. If you go to, let's say, Fall River, there's full access to Indigo Lakes. There's beautiful, the entire community is designed around all transportation, and they also have little waiting areas, benches, hubs, and areas where people can stop, wait, and also be connected to the future bus system. A lot of they don't even have buses yet, but they already have shelters built, bus shelters, planning for the future. And maybe we should go back to be able to see who these developments are, how well this is working, and go look at other communities as well, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, find out places that are working and bring that back to our table and how we're going to work. I definitely say our city needs a bike network. We need to have a way to get people in and out of their bicycles, in and out off the peninsula, and to hub to hub. I don't like the way it's being done, where we're tearing up streets, making them narrower, but there's growing pains. And once these growing pains are over, we have a main thoroughfare network. I'm not saying every street should have bike access, but a main thoroughfare that you can easily get your bike from the ferry terminal to Fairview to Spryfield, etc., without having to go through traffic at all and feel safe. Then we have to have this network here, but the way we're doing it is wrong. So we should have designated streets. Unfortunately, there are some taxpayers who say, well, I don't want my street, I don't want more street to be all one way and have bikes on it. But there is only so many ways.
Unfortunately, during our second half of our mayor's debate, we had technical problems with our sound. We have, during our film editing of this mayor's debate, I had increased the sound volume significantly so it's to your ability so you can hear what's being said at the mayor's debate. If you have any headphones, that will increase the sound a lot better. But if you have any headphones, please install it so you can hear what's being said at the mayor's debate. Some people from the audience had spoken their concerns and their response to the topics that was being brought up at the mayor's debate. Some people had very good, interesting, valid points to be bringing up, and but unfortunately, the questions from the audience wasn't until the second half of the mayor's debate.
Talking about the police, I think the police, they should be more police. They're all in their cars, but hiding. The presence is there, trying. No feeling like others. I don't know where they are. Even if you go to the station, they're all locked in. They should get taken. Yeah, always going back to the point of the shelter. Problem, they are setting up police from the bar coordination. But a lot of people don't have because they go online from elementary. And you don't need to break it. They always go and pick up another area. And going down and police, but they don't have the money to handle it. It's not kind of can't handle, come on, and buy more, but I like it going back, like the mayor, choose something about the people that actually money they're building. These are also coming to people that like drugs or so I can think about. Maybe they can buy them from what they get. If maybe they're but you buy these things that are going on.
I'm also a cab driver too, and I see this front lines myself. And, definitely we should have cops on the street. Some of you I've talked to, some officials about it, they said, oh, we have undercover police who are aware of what's going on. Being aware doesn't solve the problem. You're aware that there's a volcano coming. It doesn't mean you're gonna solve the problem. You can't solve a volcano, but you can evacuate people, tell them to get out of the way of the disaster coming. I'm aware of tornadoes, I'm aware of this, but we need action, and I think the police should be given more power in that area. They should be at the level of job should be to make some arrests. They should have a certain quota. Don't like to have quotas, but we need to have to stop it somehow. Let's make actual arrests, give them the power. And the mayor, I'd like to make a mandate, the police actually has arrests and stops at the small level. Because everything is connected, so we start with the small, a drop of water, turns into a waterfall pretty quick. And if we can let this low level crime go on, it's helping the big guys at the top and taking those ones that we can't catch the big fish. The big fish has all these little operatives down below. And I think we gotta definitely get more, visible police and have them actually get them arresting power.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this goes back to community policing, where we need to get police out of their cars and integrated with our communities so that people can trust them and know that they can go to them. And they need to be humanized. This like sunglasses on, harsh persona isn't trustworthy to many of us. So we need to humanize them. This can be done through education and, again, more funding, not for militarization, but for education. They also need to be allowed to apply the law equally. So as you mentioned, they're aware of things that are happening, and they're not acting on it. Why is that? Certain people are getting a pass, and certain people are feeling the extent of the law. The law needs to be applied equally. That is what makes a fair and just society. It's not the law that makes a fair and just society, it's if the law is applied equally. So again, we need to educate our officers, get them out on the streets so that people can feel like they can trust them and go up to them if they have a problem. Also that they aren't scared of pushback. If they make an arrest because, X, Y, or Z. So often, there's a police officer that's saying, I don't want to touch that because I'll get in trouble later. There'll be public pushback. We need to get rid of that idea that they're doing their job and they should be punished for doing their job, but they have to apply the law in every case.
Earlier in this debate, we talked about affordable housing. We talked about police and community later on in the debate. 2 years ago, when I was at City Hall, I was watching Mayor Mike Savage hoist a flag for a group of people in Grand Parade. And unfortunately, for the people who were living in those tents in Grand Parade, some of those people were becoming aggressive to people in the community who was either accessing City Hall, the mayor, or whatever. And some people it made them uncomfortable. And not only was Grand Parade a spot for aggressiveness with people living in the tents, but they were scattered right through the downtown core. And it got to the point that it was on the news, the media aired it. A former city councilor had voiced it on the press. But one of the things, like what I noticed, dealing with people who are living in tents, we often think, the worst, drug dealers, not helping themselves, whatever the case may be. But there's always a reason for them to be in a tent, of course. But what I noticed is if a police officer tries to help somebody, the resources that the police are given is not actually strong enough to help the person in need. Because one of the things I noticed is a police officer will charge someone, not for the sake of charging, just so that they can get them the access to the Nova Scotia Mental Health Court, or they'll try to get them admitted to the East Coast Forensic Hospital, get them some service. But even in the service doesn't always reach out to the needs of the people where their needs are not met, more or less. And sometimes, unfortunately, when some people are released from the mental health court or the East Coast Forensic Hospital or the A&A building, it seems to me that some people, when they're released, they're reoffended the moment they get out because, like I said, past services and something like community service or whatever, it's not actually meeting their needs. They're actually creating more barriers in front of them than what they're actually helping. And like we talked about provincial politics earlier in this debate, it seems like the province is not actually addressing situations until the situation is in crisis. And like I said, majority of the issues that are voiced in this municipal election are provincial issues. And what it comes down to is, even though this here is a provincial jurisdiction, what can you guys do? Work with the Halifax police or your people in charge that can ensure that the people, when they're receiving the services from a police officer or whatever, that their needs are actually being met.
Yeah, so it goes back to being proactive rather than reactive. But we do need to allocate more resources for things like mental health issues, addictions, issues. And there, in my opinion, there's three groups of people who are unhoused right now. There are the working class who can't find a place and they're out there because they have no other place to go. There are people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues that, again, there because they have no other resources to go. We need to allocate the proper resources for those people. And then there's this third group of people who, in my opinion, and we can see that they're out there and they're selling drugs on the street, and a law needs to be applied to those folks. Now, once upon a time, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying that Halifax has a history of taking people who have mental health issues and just blocking them off. That's not what we should be doing, but we need wraparound services. So that means that there's a place for them to stay. There's a social service worker that can help them get them whatever they need, whether it is addictions treatment or the mental health support. That person's there for them as well. And then education and job training so that they can get employment and reintegrate with society. We need these wraparound services to help them, because if not, they're going to fall through the cracks here or there. It doesn't matter where, but if they don't have all of these things that are there to help them, we're going to, like you said, they're going to reinvent, they're going to fall back into their habits, they're going to fall through the cracks. We need resources for that. We can work with the province on it. Again, I'll go back to the DoubleTree Hotel, which the province purchased and then didn't allocate enough resources so that more people can stay there. We can work with the province on this, get more people into safe, warm places, and then get them the help they need so that they can reintegrate with society.
Thank you very much. A lot of problems we see that they use as their defense. We have to put our tent here because the Constitution of Canada protects us. We have a right to shelter. They try using that and they play on that as a right. But we knew that it was wrong for them to set their tents up in City Hall, the Red Parade. It even interrupted our Census celebrations for our soldiers who gave their life in this country. And so we have to, my goal is, it's not an easy problem, and it is also falls most of prevention jurisdiction. What we need to do is make someone that specializes in that, special person appointed, a liaison to the city, that would be in charge of policing in that area, be in charge of putting pressure on the government to have better health care, better mental health care, and people who are specialized in that. But we need to do it, especially like a task force. We have to get together, have a meeting with people in our community, churches, organizations, groups, and find out who knows the solution to put someone as a liaison with the city and people who are trying to head there. But we can't just keep using, we can't keep using excuse, oh, the Constitution gives me the right to do this, the Constitution gives me that. That is no reason not to police people, not to say, oh, well, the Constitution gives me the right to do this, and we're not going to touch it until we do. We should have also a bylaw of protection talk with other government, even the federal government, to protect officers too that do their job, so that they're not afraid, and also have whistleblowers that they're going to be done wrong, someone's corrupt. But also we need to be sure that they are protected in the law, that they can't be sued if they do their job. And I think that's something that I look at as well as appointing the special committee to oversee the integration from the tent community or homelessness into a housing situation. But it has to be taken like a war. We have to take fighting, have people at the front lines. It's done in soldiers get the task. It's one thing on our list that must be done before the end of our 4-year term. Everyone council must sign up to this. All of the government has to sign up. We're going to attack this as a war. We're going to take a war on homelessness and make housing a priority. That's my understanding.
All right. Now, one thing that I noticed on Tuesday nights during Halifax Regional Council, I'm sure you guys seen it on TV when you watched it. When they're voting on a motion, it seems to me that council spends the next 6 years arguing back and forth before they decide on a decision. And I said in the past, I'll say it again, every time when Halifax Regional Council spends the next 10 years arguing over topics, they're delaying their community from moving forward. And there have been plenty of topics that came forward that could have been in place long before when they were, but they hadn't because it was prevented by the city arguing and disagreeing far too long to what they should have been during Halifax Regional Council. When one of the things that was argued far too much was the rapid bus service was supposed to be put in place. It was going to run from downtown Halifax to Dartmouth to the airport. they were taking the past 10 years, whether they should do it or not, because they didn't want to interrupt their taxi service. Now, we all know if we were to try that in Toronto or Montreal or in bigger cities, they're gonna laugh at us. That's basically what other regions have been doing in the past. They were laughing at the Halifax region because we go big council. Spending 10 years arguing over topics. The only thing what they accomplished was laying topics, projects, I should say, from moving forward. And if one of you were to be mayor of tomorrow, what's your plan in place as mayor if you were to counter that? Because when I looked at Halifax Regional Council this term, the word incompetent, I could probably throw that word in the direction of Halifax Regional Council. That's something that there's a place and time when you can argue things, and when it gets to the point where it's, the only thing what to do is holding things up. If one of you two were elected as mayor, what would you do to assure people that we're going to see a lot less of that?
So outgoing council is very disorganized and acting in their own interests. And we can see that with the two councillors that are running for mayor as well. They're acting in their own interests, not for the will of the people. If you want collaboration, you need a few things. You need clear transparency, accountability, and communication. Without those, you won't have strong leadership. So you need to be able to express the common goals of council and of people, and you need to gain their trust through inspiration and big ideas. Again, if you don't have the trust of council, they're going to be acting in their own interests, and nothing will be done. There'll be a lot of arguments, there'll be a lot of finger pointing. There's far too often that there's finger pointing in current council right now, or outgoing council. There will be if we see these so-called front runners in power. They're not acting on behalf of the people. They're going to dictate decisions upon you and not ask for your input. We've seen that time and time again. So by finding a common goal through communication, transparency, and accountability, and inspiring the council members, that's how we come together. That's how we make big decisions, make things happen without arguing.
And I think it's back in time, but I remember around 2008, about 8 weeks were wasted by council talking about chickens and having cats fly low. And I think the project was getting hauled up, we couldn't get any construction done, we had everything actually tied up over people deciding over something. Things that should have been decided 1 or 2 meetings, about maximum one part of the council meeting. And for 8 weeks, discussing it, we were a joke of the city, we were on comedy show tonight, we were talking about how funny it was when America chickens and cats. It just shouldn't have happened. And as a mayor, I will limit, pressure to limit how long we can discuss the topic. If it goes on for any more than 2 council meetings, we'll have to go up to the bottom of the agenda. You have to have clearly stated certain issues. On finance, and some of that bills can be taking a longer time for it, but other issues, some things that are not considered a major priority, should have time limit to how it can be discussed. And it has to be a vote made on it. It said, okay, well, I'm moving on 2 weeks now. The vote has to be done, yes or no. They have it off the table done. We have to start doing that. We have to, people would like to have the people on for weeks on this issue. We can't do that anymore. We have to get the city moving forward. And part of the city moving forward is limiting how much non-essential topics. And that's one would be should be reading the law. That as your mayor, that's what I will make. Non-essential topics have a time limit. So they can't kind of I don't want to call you what's called gerrymandering or probably sit there and they ring the bell and legislate forever and just talk about things that were not put into the bill. And I think we have to start looking at that. We also look at other reform within the city. I'm looking at other issues that are connected to this is getting rid of the need for by-elections. By-elections are very expensive. And what we need to do is have maybe an alternate plan. If someone has ran for office, say they were a second in line, they would give the option to go for that seat before having to have a whole election call. If that person didn't want to go for by the third person, then they could call by-election. Save us tons of tax dollars. And I just think we got to do reform with that. One thing, part of my plan on reform for the city council, that's part of how we're going to do it under my authority.
All right, I'll ask one more question, and then we could three words you were to get elected, what were those three words you would have in the community? And viable. What three words would you use for the community that they can expect from you guys if you elected as mayor of Halifax?
Communication, accountability, and transparency. Without any one of those, then you lose trust, and with those, inspire and create a common goal, like big ideas. People can rely on you, they can see what you're doing, your books are open, and talking to them one-on-one, be their voice. Communication, transparency, accountability is what council needs.
I think we need community, unity, and trust. Those three things. Think of our community first. Yeah, we unite together, we trust our citizens as well as our elected officials.
All right, well, I guess that concludes our mayor's debate. Thank you all for coming out, Riley for coming out, and people in attendance. And we thank